Barkeep, a man could die of thirst in this pub. Somebody buy me a pint, please. Hello out there, everybody, and welcome to episode number 19 of the increasingly popular, thanks to all you guys, Empty Pockets podcast with Skip Healy. I am extremely excited about today's guest. A little bit about our background. I met this gentleman first back in the year 2012 when I was engaged by Mr. Eric Juilliard, the artistic director of the Basel Tattoo, which is the second largest military tattoo, outdoor military tattoo in the world, only behind the famous Edinburgh tattoo. And he said, I'm going to have you play with a bagpiper and a group of Scottish dancers. And I said, oh, Eric, that's going to be great. I've played with a lot of pipers before. It'll be fun. And he said, not like this one, you haven't. And he was right. This man is certainly the best piper that I've ever played with in my life. An amazing man with an amazing life's story. He's a composer of music for the pipes as well. His first collection was called Land of Bens and Glens and Heroes. His second is called The Park Grove. Let me get it centered for you. The Park Grove Collection. And his name is Captain Stuart D. Samson, M.B.E., retired. Now, for those of you who do not know, M.B.E. means Member of the British Empire. He's actually the second M.B.E. we featured on the show. The first was Ian Anderson, of all people, from the rock band Jethro Tull. This is a different kind of music that this man specializes in, but it rocks all the same. Stuart, thank you so much for coming on the Empty Pockets podcast with Skip Healy. I'm thrilled that you could make some time for us.
Hi, I'm good, Skip. Nice to be on your podcast, and thanks for the invitation.
Stuart, you're very, very welcome. I know you're retired, but retirement doesn't mean very much. I know you're on the go all the time. Your time is very much in demand from a lot of people in a lot of places. So thank you very much for shaking loose a bit of time and having a wee chat with us.
Yeah, well, I'm not fully retired yet, but I am definitely very busy.
Stuart, I mentioned earlier that you have a tremendous life story, really unbelievable in some ways, the stuff that that movies are made from. Could you tell us a little bit about your background, growing up, your early interest in the pipes, and maybe tell us about your extremely distinguished military career as a musician?
I think it all came about. I come from a musical sort of history in my family, but nobody really in the pipes. They're all like fiddle players from the northeast of Scotland. And when I used to go to visit my grandmother, she would always have the record player playing, or the radio would be on, Scottish music, fiddle playing. My cousin, who's about 4 or 5 years older than me, he was a fantastic fiddle player. uh, and a piper, but he was so good at the fiddle, he won the mod in the adult mod competition the very first attempt.
Oh, wow.
And he
Wow.
also won the
Impressive.
Golden Fiddle Award, and he's a very prominent composer when he was young. So I thought, well, he's playing the pipes. I quite like that. That looks cool. I'm going to have a go at that. And I started when I was 8 years old. Uh, I went for lessons locally to a town called Montrose, and it was a retired pipe major called Norman MacLeod. He was in the Dundee City Police pipe band before that, and he started me off and gave me a really good grounding and understanding of the pipes before I joined the military when I was 15 as a boy. My teacher was quite strict at the time. He wouldn't move me onto new tunes until I was really proficient and doing everything perfect, which was a bit frustrating at times because sometimes you would be playing, you say, right, 3 times perfect, and the third time you make a wee mistake. And you go, well, maybe just one more week before we move on.
Yeah.
So, but looking back, I'm very thankful for that strict, teaching that he gave me.
Yeah, Stuart, I say the same thing to my students. I really stress to them that the fundamentals that you learn in the beginning is, in the end, what you're going to sound like as a player.
Yeah, I mean, in the modern world that we live in now, everything's about fast track, and I do think that obviously learning a musical instrument and to become a master of it, you really need to go slow and make sure you're doing all the technique and everything properly.
Mhm.
Shortcuts can come back to sort of they become bad habits in a way later on. So yeah, well, I knew I was going to join the army from the age of 13. And it was all through a book, Scots Guards book of pipe music, and they had photographs of all the pipe majors and their uniforms, and I thought, oh, that's for me. And the pipe major at that time when I was joining was a famous pipe major called Pipe Major Angus MacDonald,
Mhm.
and he heard that I was wanting to join the army, and he arranged for me to go up to Aberdeen, and he wanted me to join the Scots Guards. And I would have probably joined the Scots Guards if I was allowed, but I got up there and they said, "Oh, sorry, you're too small." I was only 5'3" at the time, and you had to be 5'4" even as a boy soldier uh,
Okay.
to get into the Scots Guards. So I decided, although my father was in the Queensland Cameron Highlanders, I decided to join my local regiment, which was the Gordon Highlanders. Uh, and that was it. So at 15 and 10 months, at 5'3", I joined the Gordon Highlanders junior service, and I did 10 weeks at Bridge of Don Barracks, basic training, and then I was then put down to Edinburgh to the Scottish Division School of Music, and I did a year and a half at the school and became eventually junior pipe major. And within a year of joining, a year, maybe just over a year, 14 months, I was 6'4". It was great.
That good army food did it, huh?
Yeah, all the food and exercise probably. And yeah, it was quite, I could feel my joints growing when you're lying in bed and that.
Mhm.
Used to go to quartermaster every month, and he need longer trousers, you know. 'Cause,
Gotta start
so,
eating less.
but then I joined the Gordon Highlanders in 1980, the regulars. Yeah, and the band was pretty good and had about 14, 15 pipers in the band. And by the time that was 1980, and by 1985, 5 years later, I did my pipe majors course as a corporal. So I worked my way up to corporal, did my pipe majors course, which was in Edinburgh Castle. It lasted for just short of 10 months. And I qualified and I got my pipe major certificate. But even though you get your pipe major certificate, there's no guarantee that you'll become a pipe major.
Mhm.
It's what you do with it's what you do with the qualification.
Aye. Mhm.
But 1987, 86, I passed out from there. And then I became a sergeant. I did a tour in North America. We did 60 cities, 62 cities around America in 12 weeks. That was pretty full
Yeah.
on. The Gordon Highlanders and the Grenadier Guards together. And then in 1990, the same year as I got married, I also became pipe major at the Gordons.
Mhm.
It was still a relatively a young age.
Mhm.
So I would have been 28, so it's still quite young.
Mhm.
And then I did a pipe major at the Gordons, I did pipe major at a training regiment. After that, I did pipe major recruiting for 2 years in Inverness, which was a nice cushy post. I got around all the Highland games to compete and playing really well, winning loads of prizes at that time. And then I became pipe major of the Highlanders later on. And so it's not very people's done 2 stints as a first battalion pipe major. So the first stint when I was pipe major, I was a sergeant. The second stint as a pipe major, I was a warrant officer class 2. So I had much more power, to look after the guys, fight your corner, as it were, for time off and things like that. So.
Mhm.
And then from there, I got the distinguished position as senior pipe major in the British Army, which was at
Incredible.
well, no longer at the castle, but in Instruer House in Edinburgh. And then after 2 years in that position, I got commissioned and then became the director of Army Bagpipe Music, where I was in charge of all piping and drumming in the British Army.
Incredible. So from a boy piper at 15
Yeah.
to the boss at the end.
And then I left in 2008 after 30 years service. Could have stayed in probably another 10 years, but they wanted me to go and they thought I had more to offer than just piping, but for me, piping's my life, so wasn't interested in being a quartermaster or
Mhm.
even possibly reaching lieutenant colonel. Just no. For me, being a director of Army Bagpipe Music was like being a general.
Sure.
So I just bowed out and I started a new career
Mhm.
out with the army.
Yeah. But while you're still in the army, though, you had quite a bit of contact with Queen Elizabeth, I believe.
Yeah, you met the royal family a number of occasions. Uh, Prince Charles at the time, he was the Colonel in Chief of the Gordon Highlanders, so he was quite a regular visitor to the battalion.
Mhm.
And even now, I mean, he's a king now, and he knows who I am. He sees you, he knows who I was. He
Mhm.
knows that I was pipe major of the Gordons and I was director of Army Bagpipe Music.
Mhm.
Uh, played for him twice this year
This
already.
year.
Yeah.
Oh,
So yeah, he even commissioned me to write a tune.
oh, I remember that story. Yeah, that's a great story.
Yeah, so it was just a joke. He came up and said, "You should compose a tune and call it," because our regimental march is Cock of the North,
Right.
and our general, uh, uh, who was colonel of the regiment, his nickname was the Tash because he had
Right.
a moustache.
Mhm.
So he says, "Why don't you compose a tune and call it the Tash of the North?" You see, and he had a wee laugh, and then he sort of walked away. But he just said it as a joke, I think. But I did it. So,
Yep.
and I had to go through all the whole protocol to get in touch with the palace and say that I'd written this tune, and he had to sign it and presented it to the general. So the general actually passed away earlier this year. So that was where one of the events where I played, where I seen King Charles, because he attended the funeral of this former general, Sir Peter Graham, who actually was responsible for producing the two Gordon Highlanders volumes of pipe music, which are two really big, thick books. There's about 300 tunes in each book. So.
And then, speaking of protocols and funerals, I thought you had mentioned one time that you had, while you were still in the service, had created the protocol for the funeral of Her Majesty when she passed away.
Yeah, well, the part of the responsibility there would be regular meetings to discuss the plan for any state funerals that may happen. So there's got to be a sort of plan musically to what was going to be played. So I think because just before I took over as director, the Queen Mother had passed away. And there was like a mass pipes and drums, like of 200 people on parade. And they played, I think it was 3 tunes, but I knew that the musical contribution by the mass pipes and drums of the same number for Her Majesty was like something like 6 sets of music. But there wasn't any. That was so I put sort of made suggestions, let's just say, and which were approved. Because it's a strange 70 or 75 beats per minute. There's no natural tunes that are actually that. So you're taking a tune that's maybe 45 paces per minute, and you're sort of then slowing it down, but playing it in double time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's quite strange taking a 6/8 and doing it in a compound tune as well. It's quite difficult to find, the right tunes that works with. So yeah, but yeah. So once I left, the plan was in place, and then it might have changed. You never know, because somebody else goes in, and they just kept on being sort of probably looked at until whenever that time came along. I would say, though, when it did come along, I was really nervous, because is it the same music or is it different? And it was, I think 95% of it was the same music.
So, Stuart, what I'd like to do now is if you could explain a little bit about the workings of the bagpipes as an instrument to us. And also, I know there's a special instrument that you use when you're practicing because the pipes themselves are, quite loud and they're either on or they're off. So, if you could show us a little bit about how you go about learning a new tune on the bagpipes, that'd be really great.
The first thing before you go into the bagpipes, you would actually start off by learning the practice chanter. So that's when you start off and this is classed as a sort of a small practice chanter. So for a child, this would be the size of chanter you would work on. You do get slightly smaller ones than this, but I think it's probably best to start on this size, and then you can get onto there's a bigger size.
Oh, geez.
That's some people prefer to play this all the time. Some people prefer to play this because it's more the spacing of the holes, the fingering is closer to the actual bagpipe.
So you're talking about the spacing between the fingers, the tone holes on the chanter.
Yeah, yeah. So, and it's all about obviously muscle memory.
Yeah.
Being able to, you can feel the holes without looking at them, and
Mhm.
you've got to get used to the spacing.
Mhm.
So, yeah. But usually people can jump from the smaller practice chanter onto the pipes, once they're proficient, no problem. But initially, it's a big step going from this onto the bagpipes because you've got to then all of a sudden you've got this bag under your arm.
Mhm.
You've got to make sure you're blowing and keeping the bag going and the pressure. And you've got all of a sudden three drones in your shoulder that's
Mhm.
giving you the continuous harmonic, that wah,
Mhm.
and then you've got the chanter itself. So I mean, on this we have a double-sided reed. It's a plastic reed,
Mhm.
which is fine. In the olden days, that would have been cane.
Yeah.
But on the bagpipes, that reed, well, there are plastic pipe reeds, but nobody plays them. But this is let me see that. That there
Oh, yeah.
is a double-sided chanter reed.
Mhm.
Uh,
So the reeds themselves, do you buy them from the bagpipe maker? Is there somebody who specializes in making the reeds?
Yeah,
Pipe maker
yeah,
also make
there's a
reeds?
few good reed makers. I mean, all reed makers are really good actually, and everybody's got a sort of personal preference. Uh, if you can make them yourselves, back in the olden days, most people would make the reeds themselves.
Yeah.
But it is a very it's a skill to be able to do it. I can
Mhm.
manipulate them, I can shave them down and all that, but I couldn't make a reed from scratch.
Mhm.
I've never tried, but I think it'd be pretty hard. And then you've got the pipes. There we are.
Here we go.
That's the bag. I just thought, well, I've got one lying there, so I might as well show you. So this is traditional. This is a sheepskin bag. There's a lot of maintenance involved. You've got to tie the stocks in. There's a stock. It's got a little groove in it. And you tie it into the bag. It's all got to be airtight, and you put seasoning inside to make it airtight.
Mhm.
And then when you blow the bag up, you get it's tight, and then you should squeeze it for about 30 seconds. And then if it's still sort of tight afterwards, that's pretty good. So
Mhm.
that's what you're aiming for.
Mhm.
And once you've got that, this is what I class as the sound box of the pipes.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because if you've not got the airtight bag, you're not going to get the correct pressure.
Yeah.
And it's the correct pressure. It gives you the resonance.
Mhm.
It gives you the real boom of the pipes.
Mhm.
And you're trying to make everything minimum effort for maximum output. So
Aye.
everything's got to be tight and nice and tight in the airflow. Now, then we come on to
There they are.
a little bit further back. Then we come on to the bagpipes itself. So we've got 2 tenor drones and 1 bass drone. And then you've got to tune these into the pitch of where your chanter's going to be sitting. And it depends on your the type of chanter that you're playing. You might be playing B flat down at 440, 442, or you might be playing more modern pitch. And these days, a lot of the modern pipers are playing away up, quite high actually, at 454, and in some cases 458. So it's quite
Oh
high.
God, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, you kind of lose a little bit of the character of the pipes when the tuning gets so high. You know, I just think it has a more full sound at the lower pitch.
Yeah, it's just the grade 1 bands have driven the pitch right up now. But when you've got when you're down at concert pitch, I like to tune at 442 just a little
Yeah.
bit above. Just gives you a little bit more brightness. And once you get used to that and you get your ear into it and your pipes going well, it's a really nice pitch to play at.
Yeah.
And then these are tuning slides. You move these up and down to tune your drones. And what you're trying to do is to get a constant. So if you're trying to get the drone right across one constant going wah, so you might be moving it's going wah 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 wah. You get the constant, and then you check it to the chanter to see that it's blending in and it's in tune with your low A on the chanter. And then if it's a little bit flat, it needs to come down a little bit further. So you go down a little bit further, wah, 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 wah. And you continue doing that up and down till you find the sweet spot. The sweet spot will normally last a few, if you're lucky, 30 seconds to a minute. And then you're like,
Yeah.
oh, that tune again. Very tempting.
Yeah, it's a great minute. It's an awesome minute when it happens.
Yeah, so 95% and 95% going well is actually very, very good in piping. Very rarely you'll get 100%. It takes quite a bit of discipline to accept that. We're all striving for 100%. I mean, you get it, it's brilliant. It doesn't last very long. I'm going to play the tune I composed for Skip Healy, called Skip Healy's Reel. And I'm going to play it on the practice chanter, and this is how I would go about, practicing a tune. You just break it into phrases and work your way through the piece of music. So here we go. Played a little bit slower than normal tempo.
Wow, Stuart, thank you very, very much. I love the tune, and it's quite an honor for me to have a tune composed in my name by you. I appreciate it very much. Great playing, also, by the way. This brings us to the point where the scale on the pipes is unique. And when you're playing in a pipe band, you're just tuning a bunch of pipers together. Not just, I mean, it's an effort in itself, of course. But when you're playing together with modern instruments at modern pitch, this has got to also present kind of its own special tuning requirements. I know whenever you and I play together, we spend a lot of time down here in my shop getting the fife and the pipes together. What have you learned over the years about getting the pipes in tune with modern orchestral instruments?
Yeah, well, it's you want it to sound good, and I've learned over the years. The biggest thing I learned was because we play a flattened seventh. I've got 9 notes on my chanter, and the second highest note and the very lowest note, a low G and a high G that I've got, and they're flattened sevenths. So for them and to be in tune with my drones, to them when they blend in with my drones, that sounds actually the pipes sound great. And then I play along with the orchestra and I go, why my high G is flat as anything because they are not playing a flattened seventh.
Yeah.
So I've learned that I've got to put the high G and low G out of tune. It sounds terrible against my drones,
Mm-hmm.
but you've got to ignore it and just get used to it. And then when you hear the playback against all the other instruments, it's absolutely spot on.
Yeah.
So that's something that I've had to train myself, and it's quite difficult to ignore it when you're playing. You go, that doesn't sound great, especially when you're doing the solo bit.
Yeah.
You see, so it's sometimes you've got to pick your tunes that you've not got these seventh notes in a solo part. Once you're playing with the orchestra or other instruments, it's fine. You're just coasting. Everything's nicely in tune.
that's about going to wrap up part one of my interview with Stuart, but we have something a little bit special for you that we're going to close out with. Hope you enjoy it.
Far above the lights of the city, Captain Stuart Samson, the Highlanders, Director of Army Bagpipe Music, plays his own composition, Lest We Forget.